right, so as you can see, we're getting some weather here again up here in the Northeast. And I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of talk about some of the things that I've been seeing on social media posts. You know what? Let's go inside for a minute. It's kind of cold out here. It's cold inside too, but we'll go inside the rig. So I kind of wanted to talk about some of the social media posts I've been seeing, and some of the people that are in the southern states that Texas and the others that have been having issues because of the extreme cold weather that's rolled in that they really weren't prepared for. And what I've seen on social media, a lot of people are complaining, or not complaining, but basically concerned is a better word I want to use, concerned, because they're experiencing their waters, their pipes are freezing, they have power outages, their furnaces aren't working correctly, they stopped working, so I kind of wanted to go, to talk a little bit about, that whole thing that's going on right now. So, and let's put some things in perspective. When I do RV inspections, I like to use a thermal imaging camera to kind of look for leaks on roofs and walls and behind cabinetry and things like that you normally wouldn't see with your naked eye. So I pulled out the thermal. So right now inside this particular RV, this fifth wheel, it is the thermostat on the wall is reading 30 degrees Fahrenheit. I think I might be able to get that behind the slide. You can read there. Yeah, it's 62% humidity with the temperature, and the temperature is 30 degrees. So it's cold in here. But I have the thermal imaging camera to kind of give you some perspective. And if you kind of take a look at where I'm scanning on the walls and the ceilings, we're looking at about 22 degrees Fahrenheit. If we take a look at the door, reading 24, 23 degrees Fahrenheit. You take a walk over here to the windows and the slide. You can really see there some cold coming in through the slide, but that's to be expected. You look on the floors. You're talking 22. So everything's averaging around 22. Even the floor itself is averaging averaging about 22 degrees Fahrenheit. So, and the heat hasn't been on in here. This unit's winterized, so it's and the heat's not on. So the internal temperature is pretty much about the same as the outside temperature. But people have been on their post have been kind of talking about I have the Arctic Four Seasons protection package, or I have a Four Seasons package on my RV, and how is this happening? We'll keep in mind first how these particular RVs are constructed. They use a bonded laminate type construction, and then when you go to your dealer and you're looking at your RV and the dealer's kind of talking to you about this 4-season protection package and the R value rating, it's all really relative as far as that's concerned. It's not a house, so it's not a brick and sticks house, so it will get colder in your RV faster. And let's basically look at, take into consideration what the 4-season packages are, or the all winter, all season packages consist of. And if you have your if you look at the service manuals or the basically the propaganda books, they kind of sell you these RVs. For this, if you for this particular RV, it has the 4-season package, right? But if you read the little note that says tests were performed in a temperature controlled chamber with temperature ranging from -6 degrees Fahrenheit to +10 degrees Fahrenheit, and does not account for variables such as wind, humidity, and altitude. Due to the number of potential variables, temperatures reported during the test may differ from temperatures achieved during actual use in nature. So basically what they're saying there is they said, hey, yeah, we tested this thing. It's been tested in a climate controlled environment, but there were no variables. And in our situation, for everyone's situation like you guys are experiencing down there in Texas, there are variables. Wind, humidity, all that stuff plays into effect. And then when you line up the perfect storm, like when you have something going on, that's like going on in Texas, and all of a sudden you start losing power and you start running out of propane, there becomes a big concern, right? Then you start to have real major concerns. But know that, there are caveats to your rating. So when you go on the websites and you look at the R value ratings for these rigs, like I said before, there's going to be little asterisks next to those values. And that's because there are variables. There are things that happen during construction or materials that are used that might change things slightly. The other thing that you need to keep in mind, and what you want to really do, is you want to read your owner's manual. So if you open your owner's manual, basically in there, as an example, here's this particular owner's manual, and it talks about cold weather use and what you need to do if you are going to use your rig in sub-freezing weather. So that's some of the things to keep in mind, that if you're, when you are in sub-freezing conditions. The other thing that test results don't talk about, as far as the Four Seasons protections, is they don't talk about how long that they were, sustained. How long were they testing that particular rig for? Does it, if you're down in Texas for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks sustained, in low temperatures, or anywhere in low temperatures, it's going to have a different rating than if it was just inside a climate controlled environment for, say, an hour or 2 or 3 or 4. So that makes a big difference. Another thing to keep in mind is I'm reading on social media, on a lot of the forums, that people are having issues with their propane and their electric, because of the power outages, and they're running out of propane and that kind of stuff. So what you need to remember, what you need to keep in mind, is that propane boils at a negative 44 degrees. That an 80, basically a 20-pound cylinder, right, is only filled to about 80% capacity. And if you buy one of those Blue Rhino cylinders, or get one of those pre-filled cylinders, most of the time they're only filled to about 60 to 65% capacity. And ambient temperature has an effect on the pressure of your propane. So if you're trying to figure out like how long a typical 30-pound tank will last, well, you can kind of calculate that roughly by multiplying, like if you're going to figure out for gallons, you can do that by multiplying 14.4 gallons by 91,000, by the BTUs, 91,520, 502, I think, 502 BTUs per gallon, and that kind of gives you that result. But you can calculate. But in extreme cold weathers, what does it matter? I mean, you want to stay warm, and you want to stay warm basically at any costs. The other issue that you might be running into, if you're getting propane down in, or not getting propane from maybe what we can say a non-reputable vendor, or a propane vendor, and that could be, you could be getting possibly butane instead of propane. So when you talk about the rate of evaporation, which is basically how propane works to a degree, we're not going to get into the whole science of it, but you get what's called container refrigeration, right? So the container itself gets cold. So if you have normal propane, you can still run into problems as ambient temperature drops. And the reason for this is because the vapor pressure changes. So think your furnaces and all might not work right. So a good rule to follow when you're camping in cold climates is that you want to keep your propane cylinder at about 50% full as best you can. Because as it drops in volume, you have more and more, it takes more and more to create the vapor, okay? In order to light your stoves and your furnaces and all that. So the other thought, like again, to go back to the butane, sometimes in warmer climates, as the end user, you would never know if you're getting butane. But when it gets cold out, so like I said, propane boils at about a negative 44 degrees, but butane boils at a positive 15 degrees. So if it's cold out, butane will not ignite. So if the liquid does not convert to vapor, right, it doesn't ignite. So it takes more to convert butane to, it takes more temperature, a higher temperature, to convert butane to a vapor in order for it to work. Now, again, I've heard stories of non-reputable distributors out there. People have problems with their propane systems in their rig, and it turns out that it's really not the propane system. It's not the stove. It's not the refrigerator. It's not the furnace. It's not the water heater. It's the propane that's not propane. It's butane that was in the tank. And again, in warmer climates, the end user doesn't notice a difference. So these are just some of the things to keep in mind. And one other little tidbit I kind of want to give you is, if you're experiencing rolling power outages, I highly recommend that when the power goes out, that you go out to your power pedestal panel, P's, all those P's, your power pedestal, the power panel, and turn off the main breaker. Shut that off. The reason for that is because inside your rig, there are tons of sensitive circuit boards and electronics that can't handle the power surge. So when the power comes back on, they're all drawing power at the same rate. So the best thing to do is, if your power goes out, is to go out to the pedestal and shut the main breaker off. Come back into your RV, to your distribution panel inside your RV, and shut all the breakers off inside your distribution box. When the power comes back on, you go back out to the panel, turn the main power back on, come back into your rig, go to your distribution power panel, turn on the main breaker, and then turn each individual 120 volt breaker back on, giving it about 15-ish, 30 seconds in between each one. This way you kind of have a seamless power backup, and you are not getting, you're not inducing voltage surge. So I hope this video kind of gives you some information. We're going on about, I guess, without too much rambling. I hope you guys stay safe out there, stay warm, and happy travels. Thank you.